I am your host, Doc Rodden, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-host, Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, and I will take a look at various spooky, scary, gory genre offerings. Joining me this week is my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm inside. And I am kind of shocked about our culture, and everyone will know what I'm talking about later.
and I'm totally thrown, but that's okay. I'm so glad you're here to just make things hard for me. That's awesome. Thank you.
My job is done.
It is. Also joining us this week is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl.
Yay. Hi. How's it going?
Doing good.
And there was much rejoicing.
Yay. Cheers. Oh, man. No, I'm glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Before we announce our special guest, I just wanted to interject something really quick. As we were getting ready tonight, I got a notice that the showrunner from Slasher Solstice, which is the episode we did previously here, caught the podcast and posted it out on Instagram. Is that cool or what?
Awesome. I'm so glad people are listening and liking.
Yes.
Yes. Also,
download, please.
Download,
yes.
Yes. If you're listening to this, download something you already did. Yes, thank you. All right. But share, tell a friend. Definitely. All right. Joining us this week is my co-host from Horror News Radio, the one and only Dave Dreher. He is back again. Dave, how you doing?
Hello, Doc. And to make it stranger yet, I also am inside. Just saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm feeling violated.
Do with that what you will.
Look
That's
behind
big
you.
news. I wasn't sure I should comment since you hadn't introduced me when you announced that, but that's cool as hell that that guy Instagrammed that out.
Yeah, and you were on that episode as well, so I guess I could
was,
until I introduced you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should say anything. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just sit here quietly.
Dude, and I believe one of the actresses posted on one of your Instagram posts, Crystal, right?
Yeah. Jen, she plays Jen, who's one of the kids, one of the main kids, although I think she's an adult and such a lovely girl. What a cool chick to actually listen and understand and say, "Oh, didn't you watch it 2 times?" Well, yes, I did. Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I'm like, I feel so honored.
Yeah. So I don't know. It thrilled me to hear that these people are actually listening. I just. Yeah,
it probably helped that we gushed all over it. I'm sure that was.
Yeah, we did. All right.
It deserved it.
Well, we have 2 films for you tonight. One is called They're Inside, and the other is called Culture Shock. If you did not figure that out from either the title or what Jeff was doing, Culture Shock is interesting because it is the 10th in a series of films on Hulu. I think it's called Into the Dark. Sometimes they're called films, sometimes this is called a TV series, but they are feature length. So I'm calling them a film. And this is the 10th in the series that we're covering, Culture Shock. And we're also doing a film called They're Inside from Dread. And it is, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. There's some stuff happens. All right. And we also have some feedback tonight. So this is exciting. Let's dive into our 2 films. Each one we will talk about and review. And Dave, I'm excited to hear what you have to say joining us again. I am so glad to have you here.
Well, thanks. I'm a little bit that you invited me back yet again.
All right. First up is Culture Shock. This is from director Gigi Saul Guerrero. And I probably didn't roll my R's. The cast includes Martha Higuereda, Richard Cabral, and Barbara Crampton, who I believe recognize, right? All right. Again, this is episode 10 of Into the Dark on Hulu. It premiered on July 4th, and there's a good reason for it. This particular episode is about Mexican immigrants trying to find their way to the United States illegally. Right? They're going to be crossing the border illegally, and something very strange happens to them. And it's going to be really exciting to talk about this one for a number of reasons. First off, before we get into everybody's reaction, of the Into the Dark episodes that I've watched, this one is by far the best.
Yes, I agree. It's my favorite.
I'm just going to say I did not know that going in, but I was really thrilled with how this one came out. So good stuff to talk about, and I think we picked a good one to pick as our first one to talk about on this podcast. So let's find out what our first impressions of Culture Shock may be. Crystal, Cleveland, start us off.
Well, as I just agreed with you, this is my favorite in the Into the Dark series. It starts off very gritty and dark, and it really causes you to think about the whole immigration and what these poor people have to do to get across the border and come into our country, and their ideas of what America is going to be like. It plays so heavily into that, and it does it so crazily. Oh God, I know we're not going to give anything away. I don't want to give anything away because I feel like if I say too much, that it'll lose something when you actually get there, because I definitely wasn't ready for what happened. I thought the acting was phenomenal. The lead actress was amazing, beautiful, and very compelling. And oh my God, the coyote that gets her across, I don't remember his name, but he was in La Bamba as the brother, Richie Valens' brother in La Bamba. Do y'all remember that?
Was he?
Yeah. So that's what I remember from when I was like, but when Barbara Crampton comes on, oh my God, she's so creepy. She does creepy so well. I think this is one of my favorite roles I've seen her in a long time. And one of the Ashmore brothers is in it. Mm-hmm. He's the mayor. When she actually manages to cross the border, thankfully she does, or not so thankfully, as the case may be, into this beautiful American town in all its perfection. I think the total shift in color, in atmosphere, is perfect. I don't know. I know this is a concept that has been done before, of course. I won't mention where, but in this case, it's used in a unique way. And I think that in the process of her trying to discover what America is really like, she determines that maybe life back at home isn't as bad as it seems. So I liked it. I mean, there's a lot to like. I liked the acting. I liked the cinematography. I liked the concept, and I think the execution was great. So obviously, yeah, I just liked it.
It sounds like you liked it.
Yeah.
So there is a lot to unpack with this one, and I think we're going to have to do a rare spoilers.
Oh, you want to?
Yeah, I think we're gonna, after we get our first impressions, I think we're gonna have to call spoilers, and because we're gonna have to dive into the reveals to really get into our thoughts and probably our favorite scenes. So we'll plan on doing that. But let's continue with our first impressions. Jeff Mohr, you're up next, bud.
I enjoyed this a lot too, and I watched the first 2 or 3 of this series, Into the Dark. They're putting out basically a 90-minute episode or film once a month. And it's a partnership with Blumhouse. So take it for what it's worth. But they're all, I think, all of them are worth watching. I haven't had a total clinker. But this one is very good. There's a lot of thought put into it. I like the acting. I think Crystal mentioned several people. One of the people I loved is Richard Cabral as Santo. I'd also seen him on, there's a spin-off TV show out now called Mayans MC that's spun off of Sons of Anarchy. And he's one of the main players in that. And for my book, he's the main reason to watch the show. He is so good. And he does that as well here. So about a third of the movie takes place in Mexico on this journey over the border. And there, it tells that story where the people are being victimized and exploited on both sides of the border, for some for money, some for political gain. And I really enjoyed this. I liked the ideas behind it. I liked the way the story unfolded, the way the director told the story, the way it was cut and edited. After the first 30 minutes or so, we're just totally thrown out of whack, and we're done so by a sort of a fuzzy dissolve to Barbara Crampton's face full screen with a big grin. Just a really great entrance.
She's so creepy. So creepy.
She is. So, I don't know how far to go, Doc, before you want to go into there, but they are being exploited and manipulated again. And it takes it to the extreme. It's an extreme idea. We're nowhere near what happens in this film. But I think sometimes it's you can make points by going overboard, to make a point. I sort of am thinking that's what the director's going for here.
All right,
so with that, I'll stop and let somebody else talk.
Yeah, we probably should mention the writers, which is James Benson and Efrain Hernandez, because I would imagine that there's definitely some politics here. So let's dive over to Dave, because Dave loves his politics, and there's a lot to unpack with the politic message here. Is there not, Dave? What was your first impression of Culture Shock?
Well, I went into this one totally blind. I had not seen any of the Into the Dark movies on Hulu. I knew they existed, just hadn't taken the time to watch any of them. So when you invited me to do this, it actually gave me a reason to. And on its surface, it appears to be just one of those kind of money grab type things. Blumhouse latches on to something that's news relevant right now and pumps out this movie. And boy, was I wrong. This was a really, really well done film. I enjoyed it immensely. I was almost disappointed when it took the turn a little bit, because I was really interested in what was happening kind of in the real world with our main character. And when it takes that kind of weird Stepford wife, Matrix-y turn, I was kind of like, I kind of like, let's see what happens to her in real life, because I really like her a lot and I want to know more about her. And we kind of get a hint of that at the end, I guess. But yeah, it went places I wasn't even dreaming it was going to go. I really didn't. So it was shockingly fantastic.
Shockingly fantastic. Yes. I can't wait to get to spoilers so we can talk about some of those places, because that's when it really gets fascinating. I was very interested in watching this because of Gigi. Gigi, I guess it's not French, so I guess I should say Gigi. She's been doing a number of shorts. The first one that caught my attention was one called El Gigante, which is one of those luchador kind of movies, but a little bit more of a horror story. And of course, she was did a short for Barbarous Mexico, which was Dia de los Muertos. And she's got plenty of shorts, a lot of them out there. And this is her first feature, if you will. And I think she did a fantastic job. It's worth noting because, what was it, about this time last year, I think Jason Blum kind of got thrown over the rails for a brief amount of time because of his comment about not enough women and to choose from for directing, right? Of course, everybody lashed out at him and said, well, there's this director, and all these names. And he's like, well, I've been corrected. And he handled that well with class, and has backed that up by hiring a number of them, and including tonight's show with Gigi and Culture Shock. So I was eager to see the result of that, which is one of the reasons I personally picked this one out for us to discuss on the show. And I think it's fantastic. There's so much at play here that she uses with the camera as well. I think, Crystal, you mentioned it. There's the gritty nature of some of it, and then there's the crystal clean blue skies of the American dream, right? That's in there. That is totally off-putting even to us as Americans watching it. Like, wait a minute. I don't recognize this. This is not real. So something's going on here. But and of course, all the politics that we have. This movie is charged, but it is incredibly well done, fascinating, well acted, well put together, well edited. And from a straight up horror perspective, it has a lot in there for fans of horror as well, without that to back it up. So you could do this story without the twist, or you could do the twist and another story, and they would both work. right?
True.
There's another way to get your point across, but having this particular twist makes it really fascinating. And you could translate that twist to a different time in the story without the message, and it would still work. So it's fascinating and great to have these two together. I loved it. And I think with all that priming there, I think we should go ahead and jump into spoilers. Does everybody agree?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you have not seen Culture Shock and you have Hulu, go watch this one. And I think Jeff and Crystal back me up. Watch all the others too, right?
Oh, yeah. They're worth the watch. They're different.
Yeah, they're interesting in their own way. Some are more successful than others. Even the least successful ones have stuff in it you'll remember. That's for certain.
Yeah.
And I believe, Dave, maybe you can back me up, that they got renewed for a season 2.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
So somebody's watching.
Somebody's watching. All right. So let's dive into spoilers. I'll lead us off the twist itself. So 3, 2, 1. If you're one out, now's the time. All right. I knew there was going to be something revealed, right? It was obvious going in when, okay, something's at play here. What is it? I was like, what is it going to be? What's it going to be? And it did not occur to me that they're basically in a Matrix VR style. And I love that. And I loved how some of the characters were, other VR people, like the Doctor, like our Sean Ashmore, right? And some of them were just straight up VR characters, which would explain Barbara Crampton's insane portrayal, which was so wonderful. I'm a total fan of this. Crystal, we'll take turns. Go ahead and dive into any spoilers you want. How did this all work out for you?
Okay. What I particularly loved about this twist is how and why they were doing it. I feel like it was one of those things where if we're not careful, I do think that something like this could happen to people who are unfortunately captured or taken across the border, and there's not enough checks and verifications and, abuse and all that sort of stuff. And I think it's a very smart way to deal with that. While it's still horrific, it's a little bit easier to stomach because this poor woman already went through so much, to get to where she wanted to be. I mean, I think the reasoning is brilliant. I think the idea of using it like that is brilliant. And I also think that the idea of a quote unquote perfect American city or town, the way that they did it, was really brilliant too. But if we've learned anything from the Matrix, we know that a perfect world doesn't work for humans.
No. There's always a Neo, right?
Yeah. We can't have a perfect world. We need conflict. But yeah, I was shocked. I was like, what the heck is going on? I thought maybe she might be dead at first. I was like, is she dead? And they just, this is heaven or yeah. So I enjoyed it. I mean, could it have been another concept, something else? Sure. But this worked. This totally worked for me. And I liked the whole idea of how the other people that she was there with, were with her, and about how she kind of could jar them a bit. I don't know. I just enjoyed it. I loved the NPC type characters, like you said, like Barbara. Oh my gosh, she's so wickedly crazy here. Yeah, and I loved the mayor, which is the Ashmore brothers you mentioned, and I liked that there was dissension among the ranks of the organization and stuff. And oh my God, wasn't that hospital disgusting? I don't know. I just found all of it very, very fun.
Back to gritty, right? Back to being gritty. We also should note that our lead character is pregnant as well, which is unique to her. And it's never stated, but it's also probably the big reason why her experience is so different than everybody else's. Because the one thing is that, the baby's been born in her VR land. And of course, it hasn't been born yet in her real world. So that adds an extra complication that I thought was truly inspired.
I thought of that VR world as pastel land.
Oh, yeah, because every day they grew up and it was a new pastel color. I woke up and it's crazy.
Actually, I was keeping note of them. I was like, oh, I like that.
Yeah, I did too.
That purple.
And the thing that was really creepy that Barbara Crampton kind of set the stage for was how everybody had these permanent smiles planted on their faces. And then even the mayor tells her that, wouldn't it be a lot easier if you just tried to be happy? Things would be a lot more pleasant if you just tried to be happy. And she agrees, and there's, that's a little sleazy, but it is, it's nice to have a positive attitude. But we find out that some of the reasoning behind it too, the guy that's running the show, he got his chops through privatized prisons on how to control people. So they throw that into the mix too. And at the end, we get a really interesting misspelled tweet from the president who is unidentified. I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I liked the way it ended and how the news was so mixed up. The news reporting, and I think that's why it's a stretch, I think, at this point, but it's not impossible to believe that something like this would happen because we've found out that things happen in those detention centers that, if not for journalists and activists, we would never know about. If you go according to the reports and what's fed through the government organizations, that we don't know exactly what's going on in this way it's exposed. So that it is believable in that way.
Plenty of spin doctors out there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh man, Dave, what about you? What did you think of this twist and all the loaded allegories?
I loved it all. I thought it was all good. I mean, it's very unsubtle way of bringing their point of view to light for the humanitarian crisis. And let's call it what it is, kids. It's a humanitarian crisis happening on our south border right now. And the whole thing of Barbara Crampton as the perfect American not giving the Mexican immigrant her child back, I thought was just so timely and important and is just so spot on. I mean, it is social commentary done perfectly. So it was good. I don't know how much more praise I can heap upon it. It was just good in every, especially I'm sure any MAGA wearing hats that are listening to us are going to totally disagree with me. But we definitely in the early part got the point of view of the immigrant. The conditions that they're forced to have to try to sneak in here on, and then how poorly they're treated once they finally make it over here. It was all just spot on, perfect. Every American should be forced to watch this every 4th of July. This should be the new Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Oh, wow.
There you go. There's a
strong endorsement.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't really think it could happen, that's when it will happen, We have to always be mindful that, we've got to take care of one another.
Exactly. I mean, there's right ways and wrong ways of doing everything. And, everything that our orange turd has done has been wrong on every level. It can be done wrong.
Orange turd.
Yeah. I don't think anybody who's listening and has me on here is going to be surprised at where I stand politically. I'm pretty vocal about my opinions on these things on social media and elsewhere. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely a product of our time. It's a moment captured, and we'll look back 10, 20 years from now and watch this. And, if I'm lucky enough to still be alive, tell my grandchildren who will by then be grown, this shit actually happened. This really isn't made up as you would think it is.
Right. My comment that they take it to the extreme, probably to the point of where maybe it couldn't happen, is more based on the technology that's currently available.
Yeah, when we take the Matrix turn, which they kind of had to do. I mean, they really did have to do that to keep it within the genre.
I'm just clarifying that my thing about taking it, to an extreme that couldn't happen right now is not based on the idea that there aren't things going on that we don't know about that would worsen the humanity. Yeah.
I mean, but how fucked up is it seriously that they have to, in this script, they have to come up with something that bizarre to make it seem like it's not too real.
Yeah.
I mean,
it made it more palpable for us to actually not, because God would be really, well, yeah, something that we can stomach on,
Yeah.
There's one other element I want to talk about before we do our final thoughts, and I'm going to throw this at Crystal. Our main character makes a choice toward the end of the film because she seems to be chasing after her
Oscar.
After Oscar, and she finds him after being freed from the Matrix, if you will, and makes a very. I mean, he's a total asshole.
Yeah.
What are they trying to say with that element of the story? Because that has nothing to do with the politics that we're talking.
Oh, God. See, this is a tough one for me because honestly, I totally agree with her decision. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm so proud of you, girl. But it's wrong to do that, okay? It's wrong to just murk people. But oh, God, he's such a What?
He shows his true colors, doesn't he?
But let's be real. She wouldn't have been pregnant in the first place if he hadn't, done something really. Well, he did two awful things to her. He raped her and took her money. So, she served her own justice there, and I think it shows what a strong woman she was. And personally, I was proud of her. I felt like, this is the perfect time to do it because you're not going to get busted. I mean,
she had a window. There was an opportunity and she took it. Yes, definitely.
But I'm kind of a horrible person like that. So don't live your life based on my choices, guys. But I think that was a turning point for her. And it showed that she was taking control of her life. And I think her final decision further proved that. She did something at the end that she, of course, never wanted. She always wanted, the opposite. And then instead changed her mind and realized that maybe home is, where your heart is or where you need to be or where, I loved it. And I loved Santos's reaction to her doing it too. He's like, oh, okay. That's cool. All right. Well, let's go.
Time to go. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, he said some people are in need of a new beginning, and I need to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scene for Culture Shock. And Crystal, I'm going to let Dave start off since you just did that. So, Dave, you go ahead and give us a final.
Again, I think I've praised it enough. No need to praise it anymore. It's very timely, very well acted, written, directed. Everything about it is fun and new and timely. It's commentary on our current situation, but done in an entertaining fashion. There's, like you said, Doc, a ton there to unpack. I mean, we really just touched the surface of what all's there. Favorite scene? I hadn't thought of that. I probably should have one ready. But I think the scene that sticks in my mind, and it wasn't scary or gory or anything like that, but when she's in the Stepford community and she sees the little boy for the first time, he's getting ready to go into school.
The smile.
Yeah, and we just get that smile, and it was like just a little, I don't know if it was a visual effect or if it was the little kid just acting his ass off, but there's like a little, almost a glitch in him, and then that weird ass smile comes on his face.
But it was all of them. It was a whole line of kids.
Yeah, it was a row of them.
Oh my God.
But it was incredibly effective on him. For me, for some reason. And I liked that whole scene. It just played out really, really well. And I'm going to go with that for my favorite scene. Do we rate them? I can't remember. Do we rate them?
Yep.
I am going to give Culture Shock a marvelous 4.5 out of 5.
Wow.
Nice. Yes. Yeah, the character is Ricky. And we spent a good amount of time with him before the switch.
And he does a really good job.
Yeah. Both kind of characters of him. Oh God, didn't your heart just kind of break for him a bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I really liked the scene too where they were still in Mexico and he reveals that he's by himself and she tells him that he's not alone anymore. And I thought that was a great scene too.
All right, Crystal, it's your turn. Give us your final thoughts, your score, and favorite scene. Culture Shock.
Well, obviously, I liked it. I totally agree with Dave. I think this is a must watch. I think it's an important watch. And I think it's one that really causes you to think. And that's its purpose. It serves it perfectly. I I have to say that my favorite scene, oh God, and it actually makes me a little sick to my stomach, is the eating scene where they show both worlds, where they're eating in their perfect America, and then they show the people eating in the real world, and it just messed with me really bad. I'm like, that is so gross for some reason. So that just stuck with me, because the way that they ate in the perfect world was already creepy enough. You know, it's like, oh, what are these people? And I'm giving it 4 1/4.
4 1/4.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's awesome, actually. All right. Jeff, what is your final thoughts? Your score, favorite scene, culture shock?
Even as we're talking, I'm thinking of other analogies or allegories that are built into this that I didn't notice the first time through that fit the situation. So I think this would be a great one to go check out. If you haven't checked out this series, check this one out. I also noticed that the lead who plays Marisol, Martha Higareda, is a lead in Detectives.
Oh,
So
cool.
I'll be
Nice.
talking about her hopefully sometime in the future. I'm going to give this a 4. And my favorite scene, I guess we did spoilers, right? So I can be specific.
Yes.
I was going to say the scene where Thomas says, I'm looking for the big picture here, Atwood. I'm looking at the big picture here, Atwood. I thought that was great. And blows his head off.
Yes.
It was a satisfying death, let's put it that way.
All right. Culture shock. Yeah, this is a total success for me. I really like the message. I like the execution. I like the acting. I like the direction. Barbara Crampton's fantastic in it. Great use of her, actually, in this, I think. It gives you a lot to think about and gives you a lot to enjoy. It's a well-done film, and I congratulate everybody involved. Good job. And while it is my favorite of the Into the Dark series, by no means am I saying just watch this one and skip the others. Watch them all, because each one has its own reason to be viewed and watched. It's a great series and a lot of fun. But this one really worked for me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Gigi does next. I think she has a quite the future ahead of her. I'm going to give this a 4 1/4 as well. I was bouncing between a 4 and a 5, so I'm just going to cheat, go 4 1/4. My favorite scene is Carlos. And so Marisol, I'm glad you mentioned the name Marisol, because we hadn't done that yet. She has figured out a way to kind of break through to everybody else. And she's kind of figuring out what's happening. And when she breaks through to Carlos the first time, he does not react well. But
yeah.
Now, it does result in a very gory scene. And that's not my favorite part of it. My favorite part of it is, all right, so when his straight-laced look is so hilarious. It's just like, well, that's not him at all, but it is, right? But the first thing he knows is like, where's all my tattoos? I was like, that's what he's going to be worried about. I loved it. And yeah, he just panics, and everybody else is reacting in such a very bizarre way. And I think it's before we really get 100% clue of what's going on, right? And it's mirrored by another time when Marisol is going off the rails, and you see Barbara Crampton just kind of looking around, smiling, trying to figure out what's happening, right? She's just like, and it's so funny. Yeah. Culture shock. Go see it. It's playing on Hulu as we talk. It was released on July 4th. So when you're done with Stranger Things season 3, head over to
watch this first. Watch this first, then watch Stranger Things.
Well, we won't tell Christopher. Up next is from Dread, is They're Inside. This is from director John-Paul Panelli. It cast includes Carly Hall, Amanda Kathleen Ward, and Sacha Gauffer. And it is available on the 16th from Epic Pictures and Dread Studios. And it's about two sisters that go to an isolated cabin, and, things go south. as we get a pair of intruders, maybe more, because they're inside. All right, let's find out what our first impression of it is. Dave Dreher, start us off.
Well, let's see. They're Inside's a little bit of a mess, just a little bit. It's not totally not worthy of seeing. There's some stuff there that's okay. I like the lead lady, the director, the one who's making the film. I liked her quite a bit, but there's a lot of continuity issues with this one. They don't even bother to try to explain. I don't know. I was left kind of I was left a little cold with this one. They should have left me inside a little earlier because I got cold standing outside. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to say about this one. It was, especially on the heels of Culture Shock. I mean, I watched this a few days before Culture Shock, and quite frankly, a lot of this has left my head. And that's probably not a good thing. But there are some good performances in it, but the story's kind of stale and just kind of reworn. They certainly are trying to be a kind of a stranger's wannabe to a degree. So yeah, my first impression, and maybe I'll warm up a little bit as I'm going here. My first impression was this movie was very meh.
Oh, very meh. Yeah, it's definitely a home invasion film. Right?
Yeah, and found footage.
And found footage.
Wasn't it really like spy footage and documentary footage? Is that really what it was? I mean, because she's editing it, right?
Right. It's a blend. It's a blend of a lot of things. Yeah.
It doesn't make it any better. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't make it any better. But I'm like,
well, I like found footage, so
yeah.
We'll get to me. We'll get to me in a second.
Depends on your definition of found footage, because I have seen a definition of that. I mean, technically, found footage is when everybody disappears and you find this footage that shows what happened, right? Like Blair Witch, right? But it's kind of turned into anything that has cameras internal to the story.
Yeah, and then the amazing thing about this movie is cameras just magically appear.
That's some of the problem.
They're just hey, all of a sudden there's a camera in the fridge. Who knew? Who knew there'd be a camera in the fridge?
That's part of the problem.
There's like 35 of them or something. I think if you look at the numbers on the.
Yeah. I mean, again, the continuity was just absolutely horrible. And they don't even bother to try to explain it away. It's just like, they won't notice.
Yeah, there's go with us. All right, well, let's find out what the rest of the crew think. Jeff Mohr, what was your first impression of They're Inside?
So, yeah, it's not what I would normally think of as found footage. And the things that I like about found footage are missing from this type, I think. But I was game, and I think I know what Dave's talking about, that the timeline is not linear. They're showing us stuff from lots of different time periods, I think. And it's not really explained. You have to try to guess. There was a couple shots where I'm looking, and the lead, Robin, looks like she's got some gray in her hair, but yet in all the shots where they're shooting that are obviously current, it doesn't look like that. So I don't know. Maybe I was seeing things.
No, it's definitely there. And there's times when she's like being very submissive to some guy, and you don't know why. And yeah, it's just weird. It's a mess.
You got to kind of figure it out as it goes along. The acting I thought was good. The two main actors, Carly Hall and as Robin, and Amanda Kathleen Ward as her sister Cody, I thought were pretty good. And I think that's probably the most interesting part about the movie is how their relationship is revealed. They kind of start off that I really dislike Robin as a character, so I'm going to say that means Carly Hall is a good actor, I think. But I like the way they had, there was obviously some friction there, and that comes from past experiences and relationships and things, and they kind of gradually reveal that, and I sort of liked how that played out. But as far as the home invasion part, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They don't give any reasoning behind the home invasion unless I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be a total wild.
It's just the neighbors. That's the neighbors, right? I mean, we get that. It's the neighbors.
And we get that opening scene of that guy
Yeah, the guy doing a 3
What's that
o'clock.
got to do with it? I don't know.
Yeah, nothing.
Other
Yeah.
than-
He's vlogging, right? So
He actually okay. That guy was awesome, though. He was hilarious. I was like laughing, and then I was like, "Oh God,
Cold water.
yeah.
Anyway, I didn't hate it. It's okay.
it's okay.
Well, it looks good. I mean, I thought it looks good, except some of the shots in the out of time sequence are a little poorer quality, and I suppose that's intentional.
It could be. It could be. I don't know if we know for certain.
It took me a while to figure out that all these other cameras were planted by the home invaders ahead of time.
Ah, okay. So I never did figure that out.
I didn't either. I did
That's
not
why I
catch
said,
that.
like, 5 cameras.
Well, yeah, they had different digital things on the screen, different digital layout, and then up in the corner they would say things like number 24, bedroom 2.
Yeah, I see that.
Number 28,
that.
kitchen, or something.
Okay, well that explains that away a little bit then. Okay.
Yeah, that pieces some things together.
Yeah. Okay.
How
do we miss that, Doc?
I have a feeling that it didn't capture my attention strong enough. We'll find out more about that here in a second. So let's find out the first impressions from Crystal. Crystal, what did you think of They're Inside?
I think I'm pretty much on the same page as everyone else. And yeah, okay, so see, that was their spy footage, and I got it. These people came in and killed the original owners, and then set up the cameras, and then set out this quest to find, I guess, particular people. Hence the contest for her shooting her documentary, which is completely messed up because let's be real, she made this story about her, which is such a jacked up thing for her to do because it really wasn't about her. Oh God, and that character, she does something that I hate more than anything else. She's like, let's talk about it. No, I don't want to talk about it. Nope. Just I didn't hate this movie. I don't know, though, that I liked it. I agree with what you said, Jeff. I think the acting was good. I think that it was shot okay. And I guess from a perspective of someone who's been abused, I suppose it's possible that they could fall into a pattern of that and continue with what they were doing. However, that doesn't really explain the regression of the sister into a complete immature and childish state, which was very strange to me. At the end, I was like, okay. I mean, she seemed pretty stable, and then she didn't. So I don't know.
She actually seemed far more well-adjusted than Robin.
Yeah,
I thought.
I have to agree with you there too. That's why I'm like, why all of a sudden is she scribbling like a child? I don't know. I found that a stretch. I feel like a lot of it felt really, really forced. That's what I think is the hardest part for me. I'm like, it seems very forced, and it wasn't at all scary. And the killers were never scary. Yeah. Yeah, it was yeah.
Well, you're bringing out a number of points that made this not a great experience for me. The character's motivation seemed to be defined by the events, but not the characters.
Yeah.
It was to serve the story instead of to serve the character. And I know that's a kind of a picky thing, maybe, you're really getting into it, but it distracted me from enjoying this. I did not enjoy how the found footage was woven together. And I love found footage films.
I do too.
I really do. So to not like one, means that, well, it just did not favor me. And I kind of felt it from the beginning with that little entry because some of it was successful. It might have been more successful than a lot of the rest of it, but it also was uneven. Even that, that little stinger at the beginning of it with the guy vlogging.
I kind of like that part. I'm not gonna
Yeah, I found the opening scene a little uneven, and combined with not enjoying how they handled the found footage elements. This film didn't get to me, and the invaders themselves, which I liked the concept of the one mask, but I never really understood what the other person was trying to represent. It just never really gelled for me. I didn't like this. I didn't enjoy this. I wanted to.
I did too.
And it brought me in and out, but in the end, not so much. There's a couple scenes that are like, oh, that was bold.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, this is a problematic film, and I don't know. I've been trying since I watched it to pinpoint if there's a single element or something that just drove me away from it, and I can't really figure that out. You guys are well, it might be just there's too much, because you guys, it's not that any one thing is so bad. It's just that there's each element kind of might have a little bit wrong with it that it adds up, when you sum it all up.
I think overall the character development wasn't necessarily as much of an issue as the character choices just seemed strange to me.
They didn't match the character development. Yeah, and that threw me a lot. Yes.
And I think that ruins it for me. That's enough to ruin it for me when it just seems so opposed to everything else that's going on. None of it seemed very natural. None of these seem like natural decisions. Like Robin pushing so hard to call for her husband. Calm down, lady. I don't know. I found it, like I said, I feel like a lot of that was just forced, like you said, for the story, as opposed to an actual, something that the character might actually do. Which
is difficult to do sometimes. It's difficult to weave that together. Right, Dave? Because Dave, you love scripts.
Yeah. And that's what I was just sitting here thinking to myself as listening to you guys talk I think the director here had a vision. He had a story, and in his mind, it made perfect sense. He just didn't bother to tell us what it was.
No!
And we didn't Jeff's revelation about the cameras being installed, but I'm like, oh, okay, well, that changes things for me. That makes sense now. I'm gonna have to rewatch it now. I think I might actually like it a little bit more, because I couldn't get past the fact that all of a sudden there's a camera in the refrigerator, and I'm like, well, why? How can that doesn't even make any sense? Or wherever they were at. I mean, and they were shifting like almost on cue. When the right person was talking, the camera would shift so you could see them. And that to me just took me out of the whole found footage thing. But it never even dawned on me, probably because I'd already lost interest. Like you said, Doc, I just already tuned out, and I just missed it when that point was made. But I think this has happened in other films that I've watched where, the director's got the story in his head and it makes perfect sense to him, and we're all going, huh? So maybe he needs to work on that a little bit. He or she. I don't even know who directed this, but
John-Paul Panelli.
Well, John-Paul. Remember, a lot of us don't know what the fuck you're thinking.
Yeah, but at the same time, execution-wise, there's a lot to say positively for it. There's a lot in here that works, but not the whole.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I thought that, except for the end there, that didn't make sense. But we find out that Robin and Cody have this past relationship where Robin should feel incredibly guilty, probably, and Cody should feel maybe resentful or anger or whatever. And even both of them could have gotten past it, but they obviously haven't. They haven't talked about it. They haven't done anything. And this Robin is so intent on the movie that she's got this scene in there that supposedly explains how hurt and how bad she feels about what she did or didn't do to Cody, but yet she continues to act in such a way that shows that she really doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, can we stop and talk about that just for a second? That scene, because they spend a good amount of time building up to the scene where they're filming that confrontation between her and I guess her boyfriend in the story that they're filming, And the character you're talking about that is holding the boom mic, right? And of course, the other character is a director. And they make a decision to break what they're trying to communicate to introduce the invaders. And I personally, and I want you guys to chime in, I had a problem with that decision at that moment. Because it was jarring, but for the wrong reason for me.
I guess that didn't bother me. You're talking about the doorbell ringing and interrupting the scene. And,
right.
And the director wanted to keep going. And because of the past, I think it made Cody a lot more sensitive to what was going on. That they could be in danger. She was a lot more sensitive to being in that kind of a situation. And so... Anyway, I guess that choice didn't bother me, but it was...
Well, from a character standpoint, we were onto something, right? They were building up to this character, this emotional reveal with the one girl, the one sister, and that gets interrupted in favor
of... out of it.
Yeah, they copped out. That's a great way to put it. I was like, hold that back just a few more minutes.
Then we find out later that she never actually had that conversation.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was like, do you?
So that explains why she's not really acting like she has gone through that process. Anyway, I
don't think she felt bad at all.
Nope.
Honestly, I think this was really just all about her. It was just all about her. I think she wants to feel bad about it, but I think that she just really doesn't. And I do kind of feel like she was, exploiting her sister and what happened to her in a way, in a very real way. Because this is the best way for you to get over what? Who are you to tell her how she should feel, whether she should talk about it? Oh, hell no. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And I want to talk about the scene. Oh, no. Wait. Somebody just threw a rock through the window. The phone doesn't work. The car doesn't work.
Yeah, but everything's okay, right? Let me call my husband. No.
Well, there are a few moments of gore. A few. Dave, right, Dave?
Very few. Not enough to save it.
Not enough. Well, there you go. That's where I was heading for. Is what did you think? Was it enough to save it? And I guess you said. All right. Well, is there last chance to say anything before we wrap it up? Anything to be said, Dave?
No, nothing more for me.
Right.
Oh, yes, there is something.
Okay.
I really disliked the cuts of the hunting animal. Oh my God. I was like,
that was very very that was very Ed Woodish. I was waiting for the buffalo running through the field.
And that was also supposed to be like we were seeing actually the final film.
The final film, yeah.
Intruders put together.
Yeah, that's basically
and
exactly.
They put that stuff in.
Which was
that makes it worse.
Because she said something about that. Robin said something. Yeah, but you don't find that out till literally the last line of the film, I think. Well, yeah. I told you I liked the putting the animals in. It's like,
you liked it? I hated it. I was like,
oh, I didn't like it either. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She says that to her captor.
She does say that.
Yeah,
I remember that now.
Yeah,
I remember that. Boy, I did not put that together either. Good Lord. I need to start drinking.
Well, apparently he keeps forcing her to edit it and re-edit it. That's why he asked her if she hates seeing her friends die again. She keeps continually watching this. So I guess she's just editing it in all different ways, however it pleases him or whatever. But still, the animal choices. I was like, oh.
That's kind of ingenious if you think about it. If you're a bad filmmaker, you can just be like, no, that's part of the story. These people were supposed to just be editing this shit in there. The guy's going, we need another 5 minutes. What the hell can we do?
It's not the final edit yet.
Oh my! All right, let's wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scene for There Inside. Dave, you have the floor.
I have the floor. Yeah, I had a lot of problems with this, but I got to admit, talking with you guys about it, I have a little more of appreciation. I'm going to have to watch this a second time, but I'm basing this score on my first watch through because I shouldn't need friends to explain a movie to me.
But you do need friends.
Yeah, I do need friends. Just not to explain a movie to me. But I'm going to give it a 2. And I really think my favorite scene, I'm probably going to steal this from the rest of you, but I got first, so I get to use it first. That opening scene with the kid making the vlog at the beginning. It started strong. I really thought as I was watching that, I'm like, hey, we might be onto something here. And then the movie started.
No.
So, there's a bit of a mess. But, if people are smart enough and they listen to this podcast first, they won't have to fight through this like we did. They're going to have all this information, and maybe they'll actually enjoy it. We're providing
a service.
Yes. Yes. We're a primer. Oh God.
Is there anything else I'm supposed to do on that one?
No,
done,
you're
right?
good. You're
okay,
good. All right, Crystal, you're up next. What is your final thoughts? Your score, favorite scene? They're inside.
I can't really recommend watching this. Like, it's okay, but I think most people are going to be confused and not impressed by it, unfortunately. Like I said, the acting is good. I think it could have made some better choices to make it a decent movie, but unfortunately it falls flat for me heavily. I'm also, though, I'm going to give it a 1.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be better than yeah,
1.5. And I guess my favorite scene is Doogie and the throat cut.
The full Monty?
Yeah, the full Monty. I was like, that's bold. I'll give him kudos for that. But see, I don't necessarily like things just for shock value though either. I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. And you came up with a great name for a band. When we form our metal band, we got to become Doogie and the Throat Cut. So that is a hell of a. I love it.
Doogie and the Throat Cut. Let me chew on that for a bit. I don't know. All right. Interesting. Jeff Mohr, what is your final thoughts on score? Favorite scene? They're inside.
A couple of quick stories first. It took me. I watched the first 10 or 11 minutes of this 6 times, I think.
Oh yeah, you had trouble.
I was having trouble streaming this thing, and it just wouldn't go. Whenever I tried to reload it, it used up another viewing. So the streaming service Indie and the Epic Pictures rep were very accommodating and got me more views so that I could watch this. And I will also say my wife frequently wants to know why we get full frontal nudity on women, but not men. And, I need to point out there after the show, the last 2 movies I watched had full Monties, Midsummer and
yeah. It's been a bit of a schlong fest. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's been a while. We had a lot of dick scenes in the first couple of months we did this show, and now we've kind of gone a while. So
it's very nice that you're counting the dick scenes, Jeff.
Yeah. Well,
are we going to do that on our Gruesome magazine?
Best full Monty. Yeah,
the phallic tally.
Yeah, I would say this is. I guess maybe Matt is the best thing. I'm gonna go right down the middle of the road with this 2.5. It's not gonna bother you. It's not gonna hurt you if you don't see it. Not gonna hurt you if you do. I just think it's jumbled up storytelling, and I can't think of any motivation whatsoever for the killers other than they wanted to be movie makers. I don't know, or they wanted to. From the submission, they knew there was a screwed up relationship, so they wanted to get the sisters in there. I don't know. I mean, Michael Myers has more motivation.
That's good. Yeah.
So anyway, and for my favorite scene, I'm going to say, when there 3 of them are in the chair there, her and her sister and her husband, and something happens when Robin won't smile. And it's pretty quick, but I thought the effects were really good. Now maybe they're easy, I don't know, but I thought they were really good.
All right.
I played it over a couple of times.
There you go. All right. I think I said early on that I just did not like this film. It didn't connect with me, and I'm embarrassed that there's so much I missed. We're discussing things, and there was so much that I just didn't catch, and that might be telling that I just wasn't drawn into this film. It just did not capture my attention. And that was from early on. I'm not as I'm going to contradict myself here shortly with my favorite scene, but I was not a big fan of the opening. I thought it was a little silly, and I wasn't sure. But I think some of it might have been expectation, because I was thinking it would be a little bit stronger kind of Strangers vibe to it.
Doc, watch that about 5 or 6 times. It grows on you.
There you go. That's what I missed. I only watched it once. I didn't watch it 6 times. All right. I'll have to correct that. No. But I struggle with this. Although I wrote down a 2, so it seems like even struggling, I still am not have the worst score. So, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No. And now I'm feeling a little guilty. No. I'm
No, don't feel guilty.
Oh, I am too.
Don't feel guilty. Yeah, no, I mean, when I was thinking about it, I can see the film that they were wanting to give me, but for some reason I just didn't get that film. And it's just one of those things, And I was wondering if I saw this in like a different environment, Cause
No.
I don't think so. Like if I was watching it at a screening at a film festival, it wouldn't play better or something.
Well, maybe because you feel worse about being so rude to someone's face, but other than that, no, I don't think it would make you feel any differently. Because really, it is like it's lacking, and I hate to say it, and I hate to it is your first impressions are proper.
All right.
Yeah.
My favorite scene was Taken, and that was the full Monty scene. Because I stood up and I went, "What's going on? what are they doing? What's happening? Why is this here?"
That's so funny. It's like the moment a peen
Why
is
is
on
this
screen.
here?
The moment. It's like guys are
That's
like,
where it
whoa.
I was like, well, yeah, but okay, bold. And so I'm going to go with a different thing, because the second one I had written down, and this is why I was going to say why I said I was going to contradict myself, was the opening. But it's an element of the opening, and it's how they introduced our 2 killers, because we get to see them in the doorway behind him as he's filming, and I liked that. And then then we see the second one come sliding in, right? So from a different point of view. So I liked how they were handling the space at that time. It showed that they were having that attention. But, somebody mentioned Michael Myers. So it was in that Michael Myers way. He's always in the background. You see him kind of in the shadows and stuff. And here, it was through the glass door, at least one of them. So I was like that. So I'm gonna choose that, since my other 2 choices were literally taken. So. And I didn't have a third. So I gotta come up with some.
I thought that was interesting too. With when they came up there, just in that little scene, you got their relationship right away, because the girl reaches for the door handle, and the guy, which at the time I didn't even realize it was a guy, slaps her hand away. Yeah. So right away you get who's the dominant. And then she trots out around.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
But okay. What was really funny is the vlogger goes, "I don't even know how to use a knife," and she goes, "I do." I found that super funny. I gotta say, the beginning scene, I think maybe that kind of ruined a little bit of the movie for me, because I expected the movie to kind of flow along those lines, and it didn't.
Yeah, and the unevenness of that compared to the rest, it feels like maybe it was shot after. I don't know. I don't know enough about the background of this film and behind the scenes to say that, but it tonally it's different, right?
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, fair enough. There Inside is from Epic Pictures and Dread Studios. It's out on video and Blu-ray 7/16. So as you're hearing this, it is out there for you. So check it out. And if you disagree or want to point out more things we missed, we'd love to hear it. Yes?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
always.
All right. And we definitely want to hear from you. So feedback is at gruesomemagazine.com, or you can join us on the Facebook group, or you can go to gruesomemagazine.com and leave a message on the blog post that accompanies this here podcast. We'd love to hear from you. And we heard from Sean Parks, and I want to share what Sean had to say. He says, The show is excellent in the early goings. It suffers a bit that it mixes cultural symbolism in a way that doesn't really occur in the real world, but it's far from bad. The acting is excellent despite the script, and the kills are Fulci level gross in their execution with a Netflix budget. Phenomenal. The axe attack in episode 1 is outstanding. Of course, he's talking about slasher Solstice, and I really was drawn to this comment because of the Fulci level gross. Do we agree with that, Dave? Dave, do you agree with that? Because you're a Fulci fan, right?
Yeah, I'm a Fulci fan. It's an interesting comparison. That's not the first thing that popped into my brain when I seen it, but I could see where a fan could go there.
He doesn't seem to like it, but I like the cultural symbolism. I thought that
I did too. I thought actually it was a very important
too.
part of the important part of the series.
All right. Well, thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sean?
Yeah, I'm glad he liked it overall. Really,
It's interesting. I'm hearing a lot of people, kind of coming out of the weeds saying that they actually watched it. Beforehand, I was like, it's Dave and me. I can't find anybody else. Why is nobody watching this? This is awesome show. So I'm glad people are listening. So
me
Maybe
too.
we
That
need to
means
do
it'll
more
stay
series.
on. Yeah.
yeah, maybe. All right. Well, that's it. Culture Shock is on Hulu. Their Inside is out on Blu-ray from Epic and Dread. So check them out. Dave, thanks for joining us again. I hope you come back some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. I enjoy hanging out with you bunch of wackos.
Wackos.
Yay! We
Great
love
having
having you.
All right, Jeff and Crystal, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Always a pleasure.
All right, with that, let's say goodnight.
Good
Good night.
night.
Perfect.